Hey there YouTube world, my name is Matt Schwartz. I'm the Welding Geek, and on this episode of the Welding Geek, I'm going to be showing you how I made this right here. Death Watch inspired blaster out of Sintra, part of our budget build. So if you want to see how I went about making this, stay tuned to the video. Alright, let's get started on these blaster builds. Now I'm making two blasters. I'll kind of show you what I've done so far before I cut everything out. So what I have going on here is I've got one sheet, 12 by 24, 3mm Sintra board, and I've got my templates pasted on here. So you'll need, I'm doing two like I said. So I've got one 12 by 24 inch sheet to start. Got a 12 by 12 for some more parts. This is also 3mm. And then one 12 by 24 sheet of 6mm. And now these are all, I have these all labeled on the template so you can get over at Patreon. So the thought is this blaster build is going to be a stack up of a bunch of different parts. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go ahead and get all this stuff cut out. I'm going to not do this on camera, because I already showed you kind of how you can cut some Sintra. I'm pretty confident, and I will let you know after I get this stuff cut out, is I'll be able to kind of cut a lot of this out with a razor blade, especially the 3mm. And then this stuff you'll have to maybe cut out with a, you still can cut it out with a razor blade, but you'll have to figure out either with a handsaw or ways to be able to cut this out. So I'm going to leave all my parts out. I'm going to get them fine-tuned cut, and then sanded, and then we'll come back and I'll show you kind of how I'm hoping to glue all these parts together to make a pretty epic blaster. So that's what I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna get all this stuff cut out either with the razor blade, bandsaw, and then get the stuff sanded and nice. So we'll see that here in about 2 seconds for you guys, or less. It'd be about, all right. I have now got all my parts and pieces cut out here, as you can see on the table. I went ahead and put my other ones. Like I said, I'm making two blasters, but I'm going to put one aside for now so we can concentrate on getting one done. I went ahead and actually started putting some of this stuff together because we're going to be making, it's a layered cake of a blaster, just to kind of get a feel of how I need to get it done for you guys. So this is where I've gotten so far. So you can kind of see I have some details in there. Got these cut out with a little detail, and as we start stacking these layers up here, right, that it's eventually going to be coming out kind of like this. Alright, so I get what I'm going to do is I still have the whole other side, and I'll show what these lines in the templates. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of show you how I went about putting the details in here. You can put as many or as little details as you want. You don't have to put the details that I put on here. But I wanted to show that on camera. These are all still a little rough on the edges, so I'll have to kind of sand and flatten stuff out before we start getting it all glued together. But I'm going to go ahead and get these parts about this far on the other side, and then we will go from there. Just FYI, getting these little trigger guards cut out is a pain in the butt, so just be aware of that. You'll have to use like sandpaper and maybe take a popsicle stick or something and file these out. I use the barrel of this where you can kind of fit it in there and sand, and you'll just kind of have to come up with your own way to get these relieved out, and it's kind of a pain. So you could probably cut them with a razor blade. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that that's a pain in the butt. So the first thing we are going to do here is take a razor blade and just put these lines in with a straight edge and a razor blade. And then we'll probably, once we get those details in, get this paper off of here and get these all glued up like so. And as we're stacking this stuff up, as you can see on some of this stuff, you have to kind of like chamfer it before you glue it on. So we'll be sanding and chamfering and trying to get all this stuff glued up correctly. But let's get this details in there first. So I've got a stainless steel tube here, and this is what I'm going to use to put the little circles in. You can use whatever you want. I just find this easiest way to do this is to heat up a tube, and you don't want to get too hot. Just enough to put a little pressure on there and put a circle in there. Now that I got my little circles in there, I'm going to take a straight edge, cut these little detail lines in there, the razor blade. When I'm putting in these lines, I'm cutting a straight line straight down, and then I come in at like a 45-degree angle, shallow 45-degree angle, and cut a little slot so you can peel like a little strip out. And that's what I'm doing when I'm putting these lines in. Alright, I got the details in there. Pretty easy to do. The next thing I gotta do is actually go up in these little crevices and smooth all this stuff out, because once I glue it, I won't have access to gluing it. I also did put in one little detail right there. So the next thing I'm gonna do is go in and smooth that stuff out, and then we'll start gluing it together. So when I get ready to glue these pieces together, I'm going to start off by using super glue. By the time I got to the end of this project, I was using the PVC glue instead. The super glue just wasn't working as well as I wanted it to, so I highly recommend using PVC glue. The only problem is you have to sit and wait till it kind of tacks up before you can go on to the next thing. Alright, I got these glued together, kind of sanded a little bit around here. Still, these are all rough edges, so I'm gonna have to go ahead and finish final sand this whole part, and probably still finish up a little bit on this side. Looking pretty decent before I go ahead and glue it onto this section here. So I'm gonna go ahead and sand this up. Alright, I think this is going to be good enough to go on to the next step, gluing this to this layer here. Get this glued on, and then we'll sand it some more. So we're going to get that glued on there. What I did was kind of chamfer over the edges of these like I already showed you, but I really went after, just to get these started, putting the radiuses on, and I kind of shaved that with the razor blade and then hand sanded it. But I'm sure we're going to have a lot more sanding to go. I just wanted to kind of get this smoothed out, especially this top edge, before I glue it onto here. I'm just using super glue. Let's get these both glued on to both sides here, and then I'm going to come in here and sand all this. Maybe sand the bottom side, and then we will get these kind of touched up and straightened out and get these glued up here like so. Or actually, you know what? I'll probably glue this together first. Glue this on there, and then we'll do the top sections, I think. This is the middle layer, so I have some paper on there. I found out if you take these, if you do glue paper on there, you can take it into your sink and get it wet and scrub it off with a scrub thing, and it'll come off pretty cleanly. But I went in here and kind of chamfered the trigger here, just to make it look to make it look more triggery, I guess. I don't know. But when these get lined up on that, like so, it'll hopefully make it look more like a trigger. So, a little more sanding. We'll prep our surfaces, get this stuff, all this stuff stacked up and glued together. Get these glued together first, get them sanded smooth, and then we'll get them glued onto that, and then we'll start working on the top section of the blaster. Let's get that done. Got my thing all, not all glued together, but the layers. The next thing I do before I glue these little top sections on, like so, before I get all that settled into place, I'm going to shape out my handle a little bit. It's a little big in my hand, so I trimmed some of this front off and a little bit off the back, and now I'm going to try to smooth and round all this stuff over before I get all this stuff glued on here. And I'm just going to whittle away with a utility knife and sandpaper and try to smooth this around to make it a little more comfortable in the hand. It is pretty wide for a pistol grip, and that just has to do with the layering and all the details that I wanted to get done and what I was limited to with the 3mm and the 6mm Sintra, but still looking pretty sweet so far. So I'm gonna shape out this handle, see how that comes out. I'll get a little bit of that on camera here and we'll move on from there. What I did to take the edges of my grip down, the bulk of it, was just take my razor blade and whittle at it like a piece of wood and get the bulk out, and then sand everything else smooth. Alright, got my little side pieces on here. The next thing we gotta do is put the barrel in. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking some of that DA paper and putting it around the tube here. We've got some coarser stuff too. And you're just going to run it through this and more or less sand this into place. I'm not sure on how far down I'm actually gonna do this. It's actually designed to actually go all the way down into here, but I'm not sure if that's gonna work or not. So I'm just gonna sand until it looks semi close to me, as in it's settled in there. I don't think I'm gonna get it down as far as I wanted to, because we'll end up more or less making these. I'm not sure. I'm just gonna sand and we'll see how it comes out, and then we'll glue that into place. We'll cut the length and glue it down, and it might be okay like that. But I'm gonna go a little further down here and see what we can come up with. Before you glue these on, you may want to chamfer this first with the razor blade on the table and then glue it into place, just to give your little tube here somewhere to start and key in, so you don't have to take out a whole ton. But that's what I'm gonna do. So that seemed to work pretty well. Got a nice, what we'll do now is measure this out, cut it to length, and then glue it down in there. We'll be getting closer. It's pretty sweet. I'm actually really excited how that came out. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this cut to length, and then we'll get that glued down, and then we'll take it from there. All right, barrel is on there. The next thing we gotta do is, now that we have these open spots on here, there's 4 pieces that are shaped like this in the patterns. We're gonna put one of them on the back like so, and we're gonna stack up 3 of them. Okay, that's 3 of them, and sand them all flush, and we're gonna glue that one on there. I'm gonna do that real quickly here. All right, we are looking pretty good. I know it's still smoked out because I sanded it, because we're gonna primer this and filler primer it and paint it, but So I got my front cap on, all sanded smooth, back cap glued on, sanded smooth. I kind of went along the edges and kind of try to do some finishing sanding because we're getting pretty close to the end. I'm really happy with how this is coming out. I don't know if this is how it's coming out on the camera details, but I think once we get the primer on this thing, it's gonna look fantastic. Last thing, or one of the last things we got to do is put this little flared magwell on here, like so. So we're gonna glue these bits up. There should be three of the 6mm and one of the 3mm. We're gonna stack this up all together and then try to shape this in a flare, and then we'll glue it on here. And then there's one more step, and then it's paint time, and we'll really see how this. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this stuff glued up and sand it out. I'm not really gonna show. I may show you a little bit on how I'm gonna shape this, but I don't really know how I'm gonna do that yet, or explain to you how I did it. But yeah, let me get this stuff glued up, and we'll see how I go about making this, I guess. All right, I feel like I got this down pretty good. This was a pain in the butt. This is not easy. So I stacked them up, trimmed them with a razor blade. Chop, 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 chop. And then you go ahead and just start sanding until it's the right shape. It's not exactly perfect with the bottom of here, but I think it's gonna work pretty well on the bottom. So I'm gonna go ahead and glue this up, and then we'll have one more step before paint. I'm gonna put a little barrel thing in here. So I'm gonna go ahead and just use the PVC glue, get this glued up, and we'll move on from there. All right, I've got my little flared magwell on. Whew, this thing's feeling pretty good. The last thing I'm gonna try to do is get this set in here pretty deeply. I may ruin the whole front of this thing, I'm not sure, but I'm gonna give it an attempt. Try to get it in there about yay far. So it's just this little, so I'm gonna try to burn it in with the tube first and then press it in there. So we'll see. Like I said, I might ruin this whole thing. That was kind of a pain in the butt, but I got it in there just the way I wanted. I think that is the completion of the fabrication of the blaster. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing primed. I'm gonna use some self-etching primer and then some filler primer over the top of that, and then probably go back to black. I'm gonna get it primed so you guys can kind of see the details in the blaster, but this thing feels actually pretty good. I was a little skeptical on my plan, but after working through it, I'm really happy with how this came out. So let's get it primed, and then we'll really see the details and kind of how it looks. But yeah, it's pretty sweet. All right, I got some primer and some paint on the blaster. I'm gonna keep on painting it a little bit. I'm just gonna kind of show you where we are at right now. Pretty decent. Still looking a little plasticky. So I think I'm gonna tape off some stuff here. Maybe change this top section color, and yeah, we'll hit it with some brush paints and just try to make it look more realistic than what it looks right now. But I just wanted to show you, kind of see more details. But I'm super stoked with how this is looking so far, just being made out of Sintra. I think it's gonna make an awesome blaster. So let me get some of this stuff taped off, and we're gonna change some colors like I said, and then maybe I'll get some video of me putting in some detail work. Like thinking about making these little dot silver and then hitting it with like a dry brush silver to kind of make it look like some of the coating is rubbed off on the edges and whatnot. So I'm gonna get this stuff taped off, get it painted, and we'll come back and I'll show you what it looks like. So let's get rolling on that. I'm going to use this silver paint to color in where the little round circles are. I'm going to color them in to make them look like screws or pins. And then I've got some brown here, and I'm just going to color the top side of the grip to make it look like a wooden scale. I'm only going to do the top half because I'm going to wrap the rest of the grip in some black tape that looks kind of like leather. Now I'm going to use some silver and kind of dry brush in some of the cracks just to kind of bring them out a little better and then wipe it off. It'll kind of look funky here for a minute, but when I go back over it with a black wash, it kind of makes it look a lot nicer. Last thing I'm going to do here is take some of my black acrylic paint. I'm just going to water my brush down instead of dumping it into some water this time, and then get it all in the small cracks and crevices to make it look dirty and grimy, and take away some of that excess silver paint on there. And I'm really happy with how the final product came out here. And all right, I think I'm done. I'll give you some close-ups here. Simple little blaster going on. The two-tone color really kind of brings this thing out, and I black washed this top little section here just to make it look used. Wrap the handle with this black tape to make it look like a leather wrap. But I think this is going to be an awesome addition to my budget build. I'm really excited how this came out. This was not an easy build. It's going to test your patience. It takes a lot of time. I probably have, I don't know, 6-7 hours in this thing. A lot of hours. But if you're wanting to build a budget build, it's going to take time. That's where you're going to save the money, is your own personal time. So I'm really happy with how this came out. I hope you can kind of follow along on the video that I just made to make something similar. These templates will be available over at my Patreon page at the $5 tier, and along with all my other templates for this whole entire build and a bunch of other builds. So yeah, I'm really excited how that came out. Anyway, that's that build. What's coming up next? I think I'm going to do the vest and get the chest and the back plates mounted. That video will be coming up. I'll probably be going through what I'll be using for a flight suit and how I can kind of hone it in to make it fit my body better and fit the Mandalorian Merc CRL better. I'm having to take some pockets off and probably hemming stuff and making it fit the body nice. And then we'll have some leather work to do, like making a holster for this and pouches and a belt. And then we'll have to actually mount the armor to the flight suit. I don't know if I'll do that in the flight suit video or not. It just depends on how much tailoring I have to do to the flight suit to make it right. We'll have the boots. I got a set of boots. I'm going to modify it just slightly. I might throw that in somewhere. I don't know if that would be a whole video or not. I'll have back in, I think it was September, we had a photo shoot, and I'll be dropping that video here shortly with all the awesome pictures that we got from that. So yeah, we got a bunch of content coming down the road. I plan on starting on building the Book of Boba Fett plates here shortly once I get the drawings kind of finalized and get that all figured out. That back plate's gonna be a nightmare. I don't know if you guys saw that, how complex that is, but so I'm gonna start down that road maybe a little bit. I'm gonna take my time on that build, I think, and there's some other stuff that I'm considering doing. So there's a lot coming up on the Welding Geek, so I hope you all stay tuned. If you want to support my channel, like the videos, subscribe to the channel. That always helps. Patreon, where you can go and get my templates, and just to go over there to support me too, because this stuff, even though this is a budget build, it's not cheap, you know. So yeah, if I want to be building more stuff, so that's how you can support my channel and my builds and the content that I've been putting out. If you've been enjoying it, I would surely appreciate that. If not, enjoy it anyway. I'm having fun. I hope everybody's doing well. I hope you're all healthy, and yeah, I think that's it. Hope you enjoyed it. My name is Matt Schwartz. I'm the Welding Geek. Thanks for watching.